Hi everyone, thanks for coming to my channel. Today I'm going to be giving this Rochelle Goyle doll a new look. This was one of my first attempts from a few years back, and I didn't really even like it much back then. Those big keen eyes are off-putting. She also had a pretty gross case of glue hair, and I tried saving it but wasn't happy with the result. And as you can see, it's super dry and powdery in some places, but still has icky glue at the roots. So I've decided it was best to just completely redo her. This is actually a special project for me, as I'll be giving this doll to one of my closest friends and top supporters as a Christmas gift, and doing my best to implement their taste into this repaint. So, let's get started! I take acetone to her straight away, no hesitation like with the Claudine I turned into Luna from the Hex Girls. I'm not sure if I didn't initially seal properly, highly likely given I had no idea what I was doing back then, but the prior face-up stained her face a little. While there's apparently ways to deal with the more stubborn stains, I'll be using darker colors to cover these, so I'm not too worried. After washing the face with warm soapy water, I take a small sharp pair of scissors and begin cutting the hair super close to the hairline. If the hair is good enough to keep, be sure to put it in a secure ponytail and save it for a future project. As I said previously, this hair wasn't worth keeping, so I just tossed it. Here you can actually see how powdery it is while still being all icky gluey at the base. I'm not sure how it managed to be both at once. Doll hair is a mystery. I don't remember gluey hair being a problem with my dolls when I was a kid. I guess this is just one of the things you notice once you get into the hobby. Here's the ponytail showing just how icky it got, despite looking half decent closer to the tips. I use a heat source to remove the head, and you can see glue already on the neck peg, so this is going to be icky. Then I take my needle nose pliers and forceps and start scraping at the inside of the head to remove the hair plugs, while dealing with the tools gumming up constantly. There weren't a lot of large chunks of glue and hair in this head, everything came out in tiny pieces, which admittedly wasn't as satisfying, but it was overall easier than anticipated. I had initially planned on making a few wigs in different styles and maybe colors in order to give my friend some variation in her look. I made a wig cap for Rochelle, but it took too much squeezing to get on and off, and I figured it would probably crack and destroy the eventual face-up. So instead I decided to put the extra effort into re-rooting in lieu of making multiple wigs. I had a lot of fun making this little sample weft ring, and I'm finding it to be useful for deciding what hair color to go with. Admittedly, it may be better once the face-up is already done, or mostly done if you want the brows to match, but I already had a basic idea of the hair color I wanted to go with, so this is just showing how I would use this in the future. Which color or blend do you think best suits Rochelle? This is the color I went with, and as you can see, I painted the scalp to somewhat match. I actually was really sneaky and asked my friend about a lot of the elements of this doll, so in a way it was a kind of collaboration, like a Build-A-Doll workshop. If you aren't familiar with how to reroot, there's other videos that go into way more detail, but I've got the cheap and simple tool, an X-Acto handle with a needle inserted eye out and cut at an angle. I set out a few strings of yarn to decide which piece to go with, since this one has such a pretty gradient. Scoop the hair or yarn with the open part of the needle and push it into an existing hair hole. In order to keep it long and not super voluminous, I'm grabbing it near the end, but most people fold the hair in half before rooting. I figured that would end up too thick with yarn and didn't want to risk splitting the head. This process takes as long as it looks, and I probably went through 6 needles on this head over the 2 days I spent rooting. They just kept breaking. Do that 1,000 times, and soon you'll have a full head of hair. I'm always amazed at how soft the yarn is. I kept running my hands over it. It feels so nice. I know Delightful did a video recently where she kept the hair like this, and I love the way it looks, but it didn't fit the vision I had for this doll, so time to brush the yarn out. Using a pet brush, I section the yarn and brush it out to detangle it, making it super fluffy and soft. Just keep in mind that you're not going to end up with the same length of yarn once it's brushed out, so be prepared to lose a bit of the length. I was really bad about keeping everything in the frame since I'm still trying to figure out a decent filming setup, but it's pretty self-explanatory. If you need further directions, check out Mozziquito's channel, which I'll link in the description. Since there was so much hair that needed brushing and straightening, I clipped it into sections with these tiny clips I got from, I think it was Walmart. Children's hair accessories like barrettes and these clips are perfect for doll customization. Once I get it all combed out again and somewhat tamed, I worked on cross-hatching the part, as there's this big open gap where you can see the scalp is painted. If I hadn't painted it, it would just be gray under there and be more visible, but we still want to hide this as much as possible. Grab strand by strand and overlap them so it lays nicely and covers the exposed scalp. And I make sure to do the same around the gargoyle ears to make it look as nice as possible. I wanted to give my friend as many styling options as possible, so I didn't cut anything like bangs, since those would limit the possibilities. Overall, I'm really happy with how it turned out, and again, it's so incredibly soft. I cover the hair with a cloth and take the head outside to give her 3 coats of Mr. Super Clear to primer, then I can begin working on the face. I first start off with some soft pastels to contour the face. Honestly, I always have a terrible time with pastel sticking. Everyone else's videos always make it look so easy, but I can't ever get them to stay put or look nice. You can see me going over the same spots over and over trying to get color to build up. Maybe I'm priming it wrong? Also, I think I'm doing a good job of hiding it, but I'm a little sick and feverish, so hopefully it doesn't show too much in this video. I then switched to a black pastel for the lips, which is certainly doing a great job of covering up the pink staining on the lips. If you mess up or the pastel strays past where you want it, use a kneaded eraser to clean up. After the pastels are laid down, I take my watercolor pencils to start drawing on the features. I wanted to give her a smirk, so I start by extending the lip line with a black pencil, turning it up in one corner and down in the other. Once I'm satisfied with the new shape, I outline the outer corners of the lips and connect them to my new lines to fill it out and make it look a bit more natural. Unfortunately, the kneaded eraser wasn't super useful for correcting the black pencil. However, I recently bought these Faber-Castell eraser pencils, and I really love how well they work with the watercolor pencils. It takes a while to get them just right, but I am really happy with how the lips turned out. I take a pencil that's darker than the skin tone to make shadows for where the new corners of the mouth go to help make the mouth look a bit more natural. Once I'm satisfied with the shape, I come back in with pastels to add shading around the lips, touching up with the kneaded eraser as necessary, then load up the brush with black to fill in the lips, making sure to get deep into the grooves. I define the cupid's bow with the eraser pencil, and with that, the first layer of the lips are done. Taking a gray pencil, I start to sketch in the basic eye shape. Going with the darker theme, I gave her more narrow, half-closed eyes, then draw in the waterline once I'm happy with the eye shape. Taking the edge of some fabric, I use it as a guideline for the eyeshadow, giving a kind of cat eye look, and I use the kneaded eraser to pick up the pastel that strayed a bit too far. To make the lines crisper, I use the eraser pencil to clean up the edges, then repeat on the other side. I wanted to give this doll a sideways glance, so I take my friend's favorite color and sketch in the irises, filling them in once I've made sure of the placement. I then add a touch of blush to bring a bit of color to her face, using the kneaded eraser when I feel the color is a bit much. Then highlight the cupid's bow with a white pencil before building up color and details on the lips. I build up more colors on the eyes before filling in the sclera with black. My friend loves creepier aesthetics like this, and I'm happy to oblige. I'm pretty happy with this, so I just build up colors as much as possible before sealing with Mr. Super Clear. Once the sealant is dry, you can work without fear of ruining all your previous hard work. See? Taking a sharp pencil, I draw in the eyebrows, which always takes me a few tries to get right. I tried with pastels first so I could shape them with the eraser, but they weren't sticking well. I decided to go with a dramatic arched brow, which I think suited the design well. I attempted to soften it with pastels, but I'm not sure that was successful. I repeat on the other side and touch up both until I'm satisfied, then take a gray pencil and furrow the brow a little. I continue to build up colors with both pencils and pastels on the second layer. I also add some highlight to the eyelid and inner corners of the eyes in the form of white pastel, which helps define them and really bring them to life. Next, I draw individual hairs of the eyebrows, using pencils both lighter and darker than the base color. It really helps make the brows look more realistic, especially when I didn't have much pastel on there to soften it. Highlight under the brow bone with a light pencil, and the brows are done. After building up more colors, I decide on pupil placement and draw those in. I don't recall if I got the pencil wet for this in order to get a bolder color, but I wouldn't recommend it for detail work since you can't get a thin line with it. Then, I take a darker blue to shade the eyes and add more definition. I really love how they turned out. I wanted to add a third closed eye to the forehead, but my skill level isn't quite there yet, but I did want to add something there since it felt empty. Using these nice acrylic paints, I painted on the Wiccan symbol for blessings, which I thought was really fitting for the design. It's so shiny, I love it. Using black acrylic paint, I paint the eyeliner and add eyelashes, since they were starting to blend into the rest of the eyes with the black sclera. I then get my blue Pearl-Ex powders and add some to the eyes, really making them look gorgeous. I love the sparkle that it adds. Black Pearl-Ex is added all over the lips to give it a bit of shine as well. Once that's done, I use a micropearl across the whole face, giving it a nice shimmer. Using a light blue pencil, I highlight the eyes and add more details. My hair got in the way of the camera a lot, so most of this is missing, sorry. I bring a bit more highlight to the lips, then use acrylics to bring out the darker parts again. After sealing the face one final time, I apply 2 layers of Tamiya acrylic gloss to the lips, eyes, and forehead. My brush was actually hard from prior gloss applications, and it scraped a bit of paint off the eyes, which I had to come back and fix after the gloss dried. Using tiny circuit drills, I pierce her eyebrows and stick pins in until I can get some wire. I also drilled into the nostrils for an eventual nose ring. I wanted to add lid piercings, but wasn't sure which type my friend liked, so I had to ask before actually making the piercings. Here's what she looks like with her hair released. The waves are really nice, but I went with straight hair since I feel it suited the design better. While I wait to get more supplies and hear back on which piercings my friend likes, I add tattoos to the body. I sand the body in the areas I plan to add tattoos to with a fine grit sandpaper, which are the back of the neck, chest, and wrist. The friend I made this for has some of these tattoos, so I thought it was a fun level of personalization. After sanding, I buff and smooth everything out so the rough plastic isn't sticking out everywhere. While I wait for the body to dry after priming it with Mr. Superclear, I also paint the fingernails with this gorgeous turquoise color. Rochelle is up there with Gina Fire and Gigi as having some of the nicest nails on Monster High dolls. I also painted her toes and sealed everything, but the instant I put shoes on her, all the paint scraped off. Oops. Once it's dry, I start on the tattoos. First off is the wrist, where I add a star to match my friend's real tattoo. There's also text, but I don't have enough space for it, unfortunately. I start with a lighter color, then come back in with black once I have the placement and shape correct. Next is a Triforce on the back of the neck, also matching my friend. I had to move the arm to ensure nothing got smudged while I was working. I should have just taken the forearm off, but I wasn't thinking about that at the time. Last is the chest tattoo, which my friend doesn't have, but the design still holds importance, so I really wanted to add it. I finally got some wire and made eyebrow rings and nose rings for her in a variety of colors, and heard back on the lip piercings from my friend, so I made a labret with a pin. And with that, the doll's done! To go one step beyond for such a close friend, I tried my hand at sewing using DG Requiem's patterns and making a beanie from the Three-Eyed Ghoul's clothing, and I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. I could certainly do better with more practice, but given how long this video's gotten, let's get them on the doll and do a photo shoot. Overall, I'm super pleased with how she turned out. My friend is considering the name Wisteria for her, and I think it suits her rather well. I received a Genifier for Christmas from them, and I might end up giving her a new look and sending it back next Christmas. It'll be fun to see how much my skills have improved in that time. I hope you're still with me to see that one, and as always, I appreciate your support. Take care, and I'll see you next time.